Hey guys, I'm April from Giggle Glitter Graphics, and today I am doing a no-sew binding. I'm going to do, I guess you would call it a single signature journal. Every page is going to be individual on this, so it's all kind of one big signature. But I'm going to do a no-sew binding today, something a little different. I wanted to get out of my comfort zone and away from that 3-hole pamphlet stitch. So I've assembled already a front cover and a back cover, as well as some pages. And we're going to work with the pages first, and I'll come back to the cover panels in a little bit. So my pages are already arranged in the order that I want them in. I have a mix of digitals that I've already folded in half and handmade paper. I've got some with flowers pressed into it, as well as this kind of vintage feeling of brown paper. It has a really nice texture. It came with the edges kind of already done. I'll link these in the description down below if you're interested in them. I am using my Dragons Museum junk journal kit for the pages, and I'll be making a Dragons Museum themed journal with this later on this week. So this method is really quick and easy. You're just going to kind of stack your pages up in the order that you want them in, and you'll want your pages to be formatted either one of two ways, either folded entirely in half or some variation thereof, where you have plenty of room, like this is a whole half a page on each side, or done like I did my handmade pages, where you have this kind of fold over tab on them. And whatever your fold over tab has on it is going to get lost because they're going to be glued together. And I'm going to show you that here in a second. So I've got a mix of those two different variations. I did the fold over tab for my specialty papers and full folded in half sheets for my digitals. And I'm just going to start at the front of the journal. And let's put these to the side. Now I'm going to grab the first method, which is the tab method. And I'm going to use my Beacon Fabri-Tac today. I am going to make sure that whenever we're going to be using some fabric here in a minute, that I'm going to kind of spread it out really well. I should put this directly on the tab. So I'm just going to apply the glue to the tab and then place this page right over top of that so that the edges meet up. And then I'll flip this and give it a nice press with my bone folder and make sure I don't have any glue seeping out there. So that is the first way to attach pages using this method. The second way is with fabric. Now I've got some spectacular fabrics here today. I hit up Joann Fabrics, and you can get as little as 1/4 yard. So I went to the cosplay section and I kind of went nuts and got myself a bunch of sparkly stuff. I just am feeling extra glamorous lately. So I thought that I would treat myself and pick up some fabrics, and I'm going to work with this throughout the journal. So I've cut some strips that are 2 inches wide. These are taller because this was the 1/4 yard width that I got. And now that I'm looking at these, I'm realizing maybe she gave me a little extra. I think these are more about 10.5 inches than the 9 inches that I expected to get, which is kind of nice. But 9 inches is long enough as long as it's taller than your papers, which are 8.5 inches. That 1/4 yard is plenty of fabric, and then you get the whole width of the fabric. So there's lots to work with for a small project like a junk journal. So first page is already done. I've got my fabric. It's in a 2-inch strip, and I've already kind of laid out my fabrics in the order that I want them in. I did a little planning ahead of time so I wouldn't spend time trying to figure out what I wanted things to look like. And I'm just going to do a squiggle. And then because I'm working with fabric and Fabri-Tac can soak through, I am just going to smooth this out. And then just to preserve as much extra as I can, I'm going to go about halfway, about 1 inch into this fabric. Smooth it down. This fabric has a little stretch to it, this particular one, and I'm not going to worry about it looking perfect. And then I can cut off this piece and use it elsewhere in my journal. It's okay if you have a little overhang. That's just going to give you some little fluffy bits popping out of the journal, and that, as always, looks nice. I'm going to get my second page, and I'm going to repeat that for this one. So I'm just going to put that glue on. Smooth it out with my finger. And then butting these two up against each other, making sure everything is centered up, just going to press that down into the glue. Now, if you want to, you can use digital papers or scrapbook paper or other things that, as long as you can cut a strip of about 2 inches by the height of your journal, then you're going to be able to use that to attach your pages together. So you're not limited to just fabric. I just chose to use fabric for my project this time. So let me grab my sewing scissors, and I'm just going to turn this and give it a trim. I'm going to leave a little extra hanging out, right like that. And then I'll keep my nice scrap. I love this fabric. It's sheer, but it has such a nice shimmer to it. Flip that page over. Now I've got another piece of handmade paper, so I am going to run my glue along this tab again. And I'm going to repeat this process all the way through until I get to my last page. Now, as you work your way through the pages, you're going to start getting this thickness built up, and it'll become a challenge to attach these to each other. So you might need to kind of flip things over to get a better surface to adhere them to. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to glue this one down. Got this pretty gold fabric. Oops, forgot to spread that out, almost a catastrophe. There we go. This glue will really soak through your fabric if you don't spread it out into a nice thin layer. All right, there's that side. Now, because it's becoming difficult for me to kind of connect and be on a hard surface at the same time, I'm just going to flip this over, and I'll go ahead and apply my glue to this edge. Right like this. And then I'll just place this face down on this side. And now we've got a nice connection. You want these to be fairly tight. There'll be a little bit of space, but you want them to butt up fairly well against each other. And I know this might look a little wobbly, but we are going to firm up this connection whenever we put the cover on. So you want to be careful, and when you're flipping over like that you are gluing the right side. I did glue the incorrect edge. I glued this edge of my paper instead of this edge, and then I went to put it on, and because I have a print on the back, it was not positioned the way I wanted it. So I'm going to re-glue, and I'll probably do some kind of decoration on that side just to cover that up. I'm not super worried about it. All right, so now my pages are all connected to each other. And just do a quick little flip through here. Looks like my glue kind of stuck to itself through some of this more sheer fabric. So you might want to take that into account and make sure nothing is sticking together as you attach everything. So just give it all a quick check. And at this point, you might want to decorate, or you can attach the cover. I'm going to go ahead and attach my cover. but you might find that it's easier to decorate your pages when they're all independent like this, especially if you have some crazy things going on in the front. My cover isn't too insane. I have one panel for the back and then a flip panel for the front, which I've already designed. And it was easier to make these independent of the journal for me. You can design, you can kind of make a basic cover and then add onto it later on, just like you were making a regular junk journal. So I'm going to attach these panels on the same way I attached the pages. And this is actually a piece of ribbon. This was wired ribbon and I pulled the wire out of it. So I thought this would be really pretty on the front. And I'm going to use the same method to attach this ribbon. So I've got my cover. And I'm going to show you how I made this cover at the end of the video. This video is really about the binding process, but I thought you might like to watch me make this cover. So I've got a little kind of sped up crafting sequence here at the end of the video. So if you want to stick around after this tutorial, you can see how I designed this cover to go on my journal. I'm just going to spread that glue out and I'm going to use my ribbon. And then same thing on this side. Got quite a bit of ribbon here, so I'm going to go a little further, trying to make sure I've got glue under all of that. Could also do a little bit of sewing if you wanted to sew these to the pages. You might need to do that as you go. I'm not sure how difficult that would be. I'm kind of not really playing with my sewing machine lately, so. All right, so now we've got the hinge for the front cover, and I'm going to flip it over and let's do the hinge for the back cover. Now this fabric has a little bit of a rippled texture to it, so I opted to just use it on the back cover of this journal that instead of in the middle, because I felt like in the middle it might cause some problems with the opening and closing, but I figured at the back it won't have a cumulative effect on the entire journal. It'll just affect the back cover, which should be fine. Eyeball how thick that is. Hopefully I glued the right side of that. Yes. And just gonna place that centered as best I can. And I'm going to trim the fabric. Another scrap for the pile. All right, so now we've got it all put together, and you can see it's just a little bit floppy because I did use fabric instead of paper. Paper will make a much stronger structure, but because fabric has so much give to it, there's a little bit of looseness here. So regardless of what you use to bind this, you're going to want to cover this edge up. So I'm considering using this same ribbon on the outside that I use. I really like that. I like that it brings the reds in because there's a lot of pinks and purples in this, but I have a little bit of red and I didn't have nearly enough red on the outside. So I'm going to cut a piece of this, and this is a wired ribbon. So I am going to pull the wires out of it. And because this is a ribbon, it has no stretch to it. If you're trying to stabilize the outside of your journal, some of my fabrics in here are stretchy. They're cosplay fabrics. So this one has a lot more structure to it. And so let me pull these wires out really quick. And now what I'm going to do, I'm going to flip this out of the way, is I'm going to glue this around the same way that I went on the inside. So this is just going to create a spine, and you'll want to look at where it falls compared to some of your graphics on your journal and just make sure that it is doing what you would like it to do. So, and if you still feel like this isn't stable enough, you could put some cardstock or some paper underneath of this just to firm it up. So I'm going to go ahead and commit to the front, and I'll get that on how I want it. Let me kind of eyeball this here and see how everything is going to land. I want that to overlap just a little bit, and then I'll put some string in here, and that's going to be kind of my wraparound closure. So I'm going to go to about here. I'm going to want to glue this on pretty well. And remember, if it's going to soak through, you're going to want to spread that out with your finger. So let's double check the placement. A little bit of overlap, I like that. This is a velvet ribbon, so I'm not super worried about it soaking through. It's pretty thick. And now I'm just going to turn this over. And I'm going to want this to be kind of tight, but I'm not going to glue in this area because it could catch the edges of my pages and make them not turn very nicely. So I'm just going to figure out where my glue is going to land. And wrap right around there. Looks like I lost some of my front pocket elements. My tickets fell out. There we go. All right, and trim this up. Make sure this is nice and tight. Let me pull this just a little bit because that tightness is going to help keep the journal together. And then I'm going to trim this. See if I can kind of just open it up and give it a little trim. Like that. More for my scrap pile. And now you can see that this is much more sturdy than it was before with this outside binding on it. I'm going to flip through this really quickly. So now I've started to create layers on my pages, and I've got a little texture coming out of the top and bottom. You'll want to go through and make sure, especially like I use sheer fabric here, you want to make sure that your pages aren't stuck together with the glue. If anything is wobbly, before you put that outside spine on, make sure everything is glued all the way up to that back edge. If you're getting a lot of movement in your pages, then you might not have glue all the way to the back edge. So you'll want to go through and do that before you put this outside spine cover on. And that's really easy to kind of see if they're shifting and moving out of place. You can just touch that up with your glue a little bit. So now I've got some fun layers started, and I can go over these with my other junk journal elements and start decorating. If you want to see how I created the cover, I'm going to let this video continue playing, and I will have a sped up process video for you to watch. So stick around if you want to see that. If you'd like to see more videos about this journal, please like and subscribe. At the very least, there will be a flip through video, if not also a decorating video. So if you want to stay up to date on that, just like and subscribe, and you'll be notified when those videos are up and available. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.